Okay, so we are doing 9.4 notes, and we're not going to incorporate the periodic table yet. We'll do that in the next section, which I'll try to get that video up and posted soon also. Let me increase the size of this real quick. Okay, so on this little slip of paper I used to give you guys, but I'm not going to give it to you this year because I give it to you, we use it for this one section and then we don't use it again. So it's here in your notes. You don't really need it after today. Because like I said, eventually you're going to get to the point where you're very quickly going to know who's in 3D 5, who is in section 4F, 4D, 2S or 2P or whatever. You guys are going to know that without having to use this. But for this section, let's look at it. So what this is telling me is that my energy is increasing, right? It says what are some observations we can make about the picture above. So obviously I'm going to give your classmates a few seconds to write some things down that they notice. Now, I'm going to try to make this go quickly. So we do notice like my energy is increasing as I go up. So I have more energy, say, in 3D than I have in 1S. Right? So that's one observation. Another observation can be follow these arrows. It's 1S. Then 2S, then 2P, then 3S, which is what we did when we used the pipe cleaners. We did that order, right? Now after 3S, we would have went to 3P. And then look, normally we say, okay, energy level 1 has S. Energy level 2 has S and P. Energy level 3 has S, P, and D. But look what happens. We get to 3S, right here, 3P, and instead of going to 3D, we go to 4S. And then we go to 3D. If you're following your arrows and you're following them like this. All right, so it makes sense. It starts to make a lot of sense. Here, 1S, okay, we're done. 2S, 2P, we're done. 3S, 3P, it seems like we should go to 3D, but we don't. You can see where we start to zigzag. We have 3D, then we go back to 4P. But look, 4P, we go to 5S, then 4D, then 5P, 6S, 4F. So you can see where it's a little bit crazy after that. Like I said, today this is going to help us. But as crazy as it looks, I promise you guys you're going to be able to know how to do this on your own. All right, so that was our observation. So using the 2 in squared, how many electrons are in energy level 1? And we keep going over this. I promise you, you are going to see a question on your test that is like this, where it's going to say, how many electrons can energy level 1 or energy level 2 hold? You have to be able to use that, right? So if we're in energy level 1, it looks like that. So 1 squared, that's 1 times 1 is 1, and then 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, so there's 2. So how many electrons are in the yellow box? So I'm looking up here. How many electrons? Well, we know, and you guys saw that each time we had an orbital, which a box equals an orbital, we saw that each orbital had 2 beads on it, or what we call 2 electrons. And we do an up and down arrow because they do opposite of each other. They spin opposite of each other. So how many electrons? 2. We can assume that each box holds 2 electrons. We knew that already, though. We've talked about that before. So using the theory from above, let's try to diagram electron configuration for beryllium, which you guys are a little ahead of the game this year because when we did our pipe cleaner activity, I did this with you guys. I've never done that with previous years, so we've kind of seen this already. So let's see here for beryllium. So beryllium, if you look on your periodic table, it has 4 electrons. All right, so going, I'm going to scroll up here. So I'm going to go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's beryllium, and you guys made beryllium at one point when we were doing that pipe cleaner activity. So for beryllium, since it has 4 electrons, I'm going to go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, now I'm going to scroll up again real quick. Notice how we have 1 box and another box. We're in 1S and then 2S. So this is my 1S box, this is my 2S box. Okay, so now let's do it for lithium. Now lithium has 3 electrons. Once again, we are just assuming that these are neutral atoms, that there's no charges on them. So I'm getting these numbers by just kind of a refresher. The atomic number of lithium is 3. That means it has 3 positive protons. So if it's neutral, it must have 3 negative electrons. All right, so now let's look at this. I know that beryllium with 4 electrons looked like this right here. So lithium with 3 electrons would be 1, 2, and then it would just have that single arrow there. Now, I don't care if you do that. You could have done this, and it does not, I don't care what arrow you put up. I just always put my up arrow first. That's just what I do. So, I don't know, it would drive me crazy if I did the down arrow first, but you guys can do what you want. So anyways, I just always put the up arrow first. But the second way would be correct also. All right, so that's drawing those boxes there. So in examples of electron orbital diagrams, now notice nitrogen, it's got 7 electrons, so I've got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Remember when we were doing our electrons, our beads, and it was probably a pain because I was like, nope, only put 1 on there, and then you had to get that one done. All right, let's get the next one, put 1 on there. We do not share until we want to. I talked about bedrooms and siblings and how you wouldn't want to share a bedroom with your sibling until you absolutely had to. So let's look at this. Why do I have a single box, and then here I have 3. Now I usually do 1 big box and then separate it like that. But look up here at this chart, this diagram, which will help you today. You are now in the 2p, which has 3 orbitals, right? Remember, you guys did 3 of those infinity signs at a time. All right, so that is why we have 3. All right, now oxygen has 8. Now this is when we then come back and share because they have to. Fluorine has 9, and then neon has 10. Now, after neon, if you look at your periodic table, sodium is the next one. All right, sodium has 11 electrons, so where do we go after this? Sodium would be box, here's my P. All right, now look, for the 11, if you're using this diagram to help you out, sodium is here, we fill up those, then you would draw a single box. Okay, so sodium, you would draw just another box right here, and that would be your 3s. Okay, so just to go back up and look at something else again on here. Okay. If I had, let's say, oh goodness, potassium, which has 19 electrons. I'm going to follow this. I'm going to draw a box, so there's 2. I'm going to draw another box, 2. I'm going to draw my P. So right now I got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and I want 19 because I'm doing potassium. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I'm just following my arrows. 12, 14, 16, 18. Follow my arrows, and I'm going to have a single there. So when I draw this all out, I'm drawing this one first, and then I'm going to draw this one. Then I'm going to draw this set. Then I'm going to draw that single box. Then I'm going to draw that set. And then I'm going to draw the 4s. Now, if I went even beyond potassium, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do iron, and iron has 26 electrons, I would then go 19, let's see here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, what did I say, 26. So I would have to draw 3D, and I would have to draw this big box here. And remember, I'm going to go 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, then come back and share. All right, so just use this as a guide to figure out what you are drawing next. Okay, let's now go down here. Write the orbital diagram for carbon. All right, so if I'm doing carbon, carbon has 6 electrons. So using that guide from up here, and some of you may start to already get the gist of like, oh yeah, it's 1s, then it's 2s, 2p. Like you may start to remember that. But I need 6 electrons, so really I need 2, 4, and then I'm going to have to get into the 2p. All right, so let's draw that. So I've got, there's my 1s, there's 2 electrons, here's my 2s, then I get to 2p. So even if I'm not going to use all the boxes, I still have to draw all 3 because the p orbital has, or the p sublevel has 3 orbitals. So 2, 4, 5, 6. All right, it has to look that way. You cannot draw this. This will not be correct, what I'm getting ready to do. This is not correct because you're showing me that there are only 2 orbitals in p sublevel, and I know that's not true. All right, oxygen. Oxygen has 8 electrons. So I'm going to go 2, 4, here's my P, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, then come back and share 8. Magnesium has 12 electrons. So I'm going to go, there's 2, there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, if you're not sure where to go from here, go back up to that chart up above here. So I'm here at 2p, I would go to 3s next. So then I would draw another box. And I need 12. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. All right. We don't have to draw boxes every time. We can come, see, normally during that activity we did with the pipe cleaner, I wouldn't show you guys this. So I try to get kids to realize that we don't have to do the boxes, that look, this is 1s, this is 2s, this is 2p. So instead of writing boxes, we do something called an electron configuration. So for example, for nitrogen, this would be 1s and 2, because you're telling me, if I just wrote, so here, 2s2. Now imagine if I just wrote 2p, and you're like, okay, I'm in 2p, but how many? How many electrons are in 2p? That's why it's really important that we put those numbers at the top. There are only 3 electrons in the 2p. Now I could go back and go 2, 4, 7. 7 electrons, I can look at my periodic table and be like, oh, that's nitrogen. Oxygen, I'm going to do 1s squared, because there's 2 electrons, 2s, 2. And then here's my p, I'm going to go 2p, 4. Fluorine, very similar. You're just gaining an electron, so 2p, 5. And then neon, once again, you're just gaining an electron, so now it's 2p, 6. All right, so that's the electron configuration. This is what we are going to, this is what we're going to use a majority of the time. I'm still going to have some questions on the test for these box diagrams, but for the rest of this unit, we'll probably just mostly be doing the electron configurations. All right, so let's do these learning checks. So the correct electron configuration for nitrogen is, well, let's look at nitrogen. It is got 7 electrons. Okay, so some of you may start to be able to remember, like, hey, we go 1s, 2s, 2p, 3s. But if you're not sure on that, go back to this. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so this is showing you exactly what it will look like. 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. Right, so it's showing you right there. Once again, kind of go back. So we said 1s2. See here, what's wrong here is we left out 2s. 1s2, 2s2, 2p6. That is 10. That's 10 electrons. So we know that one's not right. This one's not right. 1s, 2s, 2p3. So it's 3. All right, for oxygen, oxygen has 8 electrons. So once again, 1s, 2s, we're missing that 2s right there. So that's not right. 1s2, 2s2, 2p, so that is the correct order, and let's just make sure 2, 4, 8 electrons, so that one is right. Let's look at this, let's see what's wrong with the third one. 1s, 2s, that's fine, but then it's 2p6, so that equals 10 electrons, so that is not right. All right, so calcium, let's find calcium. Now this one's going to be a tricky one. Calcium has 20 electrons. All right, so I'm going to go back up and use this up here, 20 electrons. So let's hear 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. So where we normally think we should go from 3p to 3d, it goes to 4s. Now I used all those boxes. So let's go back down here. There we go. 20 electrons back here. So if you remember, we want 1s, 2s, 2p, so that's right, 3s, 3s, 3p, 3d. This is where I said this is tricky because it seems like we should go to 3d next, but we don't. So this is wrong. 1s, 2s, 2p, 3s, 3p, 4s. Now this is the correct one, but let's look and see what's wrong with number 3. We got 1s and then 2s, 2p, which is correct. 3s, 3p, but we cannot have 8 electrons. The only thing we can have here, 6 is the highest we can go to. So that one is wrong. All right, learning check. Write the electron configuration for each of the following elements. So chlorine has 17 electrons, so I know it's going to be 1s, and we're going to fill that box up. 2s, we're going to fill that box up. Then we go to 2p, and I'm going to fill that up. Right now I'm at 10 electrons. I need 7 more, so I'm going to go to 3s. I need 5 more, so I'm going to go to 3p, 5. All right, right here, after this is where it gets tricky because it's like, oh, we have S, SP, SP, we should have D, but this is where we don't. We jumped to 4S, obviously, and we're already done in chlorine, but I'm just telling you, that's like this part we should start to get. It's after 3P where it starts to get a little tricky. All right, sulfur has 16 electrons, so it's going to be very similar to chlorine, right? It's just one less electron. So I'm just going to fill this out and give it one less electron, 3p4. And then potassium is going to be my tricky one. It has 19 electrons. So let's do this. 1s2, 2s2, 2p6. Now I'm going to jump to my energy level 3 and start with S. So right now I've got 2, 4, 10 electrons, 12, 18 electrons. I told you after 3p is where it gets tricky. A lot of kids want to do 3d, but we are not. We're going to do 4s1. And if you go back up to that chart up above, you will see that that is where you go next. If you follow those arrows, you go to 4s next. Once again, we will not need that chart after today. Tomorrow is going to be a completely different ball game, and it's going to make everything so much easier. All right, for the worksheet, let me go back here, 9.4 worksheet. You guys, I would use that chart in your notes to help you answer these. You are doing orbital diagrams, which are the boxes. The electron configurations where you just draw, you don't have to do a box, you're just writing 1s, 2s. Abbreviated electron configurations, we have not done those yet. So I just want you to do the same as 9.33. Okay, just write the electron configuration like this down here. On 9.37, maybe I should show you. No, we're not. We really don't. We really don't. So on 9.37, do not do C or D yet. If you want to try, if you want to see if you can figure out what the symbol is, that's great. This is participation. I'll probably talk to them a little bit in class about this, but we'll definitely learn about these tomorrow. And then 9.39, once again, try your best on these. Go and use that chart and be like 3 electrons in energy level 3. If I'm using that chart, hey Emerson, you need to go. If I'm using this chart right here and I'm like, I am in energy level 3, well here's energy level 3 and I have 5 electrons, well there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? Use that chart to help you out. All right, outside of that, have a great time on your trip, and that is it for section 4. Bye.